Ladies and gentlemen, we have only two forces in the history of man and the evolution of civilization that have the force to change anything. One is love, and the other is education. And today we're here to talk about one of those, education. Tom Friedman, everybody know Tom Friedman, who a decade ago wrote The World is Flat. He has a new book called That Used to Be Us. And so to bring us up to speed on how much the world has changed, he humorously notes that a decade ago when he wrote his book, The World is Flat, the internet was sort of a word that people were talking a little bit about, but didn't seem to be too excited over. Facebook did not exist. The cloud was still in the sky. Twitter was the sound that birds make. And Skype was a typo. And just a little interesting note, my daughter is studying abroad at the Massachusetts Institute for Technology and Art, and she's in Greece on a little island called Parados, and we Skype almost every day. And so I said, Catherine, so are they talking in Greece about the world? I mean, we're reading about Greece every day. What do they say? And she said, well, they're not going to give up the siesta. They love it. They think if they don't need the euro, if they could just go back to the drachma, everything would be fine. And if the Albanians would just go home, their world would be okay. And I thought, wow, so the Israelis want the Palestinians to go home, the Palestinians want more land. In the UK, they want the Muslims to go home, and in Germany, they're paying for the Africans to go home. It's always somebody else's problem. Isn't it interesting that on this little island, the microcosm of the macrocosm, it's not the problem of the Greeks, it's the problem of those Albanians, okay? Always looking for somebody to blame. The problem that we have today is that the world has changed, and education has not. We are still educating our children for an economy that is past and one that is not coming back. We talk a lot about outsourcing, and that's a very hot political topic, and it polarizes a lot of people. And you have a lot of politicians, no offense, senator-wise, going around saying, we are going to bring jobs back to America. We're going to bring all those jobs that have been outsourced back to America. Well, I want to tell you folks here today, that's not going to happen. Politicians say it because it sounds so good. Those jobs are gone forever. And if you think that a politician is going to be able to bring them back, go down to the ocean, stand with your feet in the ocean, and tell the tide not to come in. The jobs are not coming back. So our challenge is to change the way we look at education. We have to retrofit ourselves for the mission of education in the 21st century. We have to prepare our children differently for this brave new world. We quote a lot of statistics very often. The manufacturing is another hot topic. We talk about the decline in manufacturing and how we've lost so many manufacturing jobs. David Altig, who is the Vice President of Research at the Federal Reserve, says that the statistics are really not very revealing and they're often manipulated. He said that the Fed sees that manufacturing has really stayed pretty much consistent since the 50s. Our output is pretty much the same. Hasn't grown, but it's pretty much the same. He says we have lost jobs in the manufacturing sector because we've automated. We now do things that are just unbelievable in terms of automation. We can count the number of containers coming off a ship with a radar, and the numbers are put on a screen someplace. We don't need 100 people for that process. So those jobs are gone and they're not coming back. He says that, this is a joke that he says they tell at the Fed, that pretty soon manufacturing is going to come down to one man and a dog. And the dog is going to be there to keep the man from doing anything. So that is an example of where we are in the 21st century. It is a changed world. To underscore the importance, and just as an aside, we are talking about the problem of outsourcing in our country. The Chinese are talking about all the jobs that are leaving China to go to Vietnam and Cambodia. Outsourcing is a fact of life and very much going to be a part of the business fabric of our world. To underscore the importance of what we say and do here, I quote a Friedman scenario from his book. He says that if Hillary Clinton had asked him to give her some political advice about her career, and he says, which she didn't, but he would have told her that when she had a conversation with President-elect Obama, and he asked her to consider being Secretary of State, that she should have said, well, no, sir, that position just deals with foreign policy and dealing with all the countries of the world in terms of executing foreign policy for the United States. She should have told him, I want to have a job that is more closely aligned with national security. I want to be Secretary of Education. Because, folks, that's where we are today. In the 21st century, we have to change the nature of our discourse about education. We have forever talked about education, Dr. Snow, as a social issue. And all that has informed our discussion is keeping people out of poverty by way of education, educating the populace for jobs, supplying business with an appropriate workforce, and training leaders. The social discussion is no longer adequate, and it has to come to an end. The dialogue around education must be economic and one of national security. It's not a social issue. The stakes are higher than they have ever been before, and our survival as the top tier in the world depends on how we meet this challenge. It is not egotistical when I tell you that it is in the world's best interest that America remains the leader of the pack.